Program. Every year they assign a question, and every year 20-some groups of students go out and try to apply that question in different topics. This year's question is, when do we make exceptions? And we're here essentially applying that to the laws regarding cannabis consumption and production in Oregon.
Oh, very nice.
I'm telling you.
Nice general question, and then that's really good.
Fill in the blanks.
Yeah, that's good.
It's really broad and open-ended so that we can we have lots of groups investigating tons of different things.
So the question again was what?
When do we make exceptions?
We have several questions that we'd like to ask that are a little more pointed than that, because that's ridiculously broad.
Right, but it's encouraging that it's going to be favorable.
This is a general release form. Unfortunately, we only have one, but it...
Do we not have the other?
I can make some copies.
You do? That would be lovely. If we could get everyone here to sign it. It's a requirement of the Honors College, because we really hate to do anything against your wishes.
Right. Yeah, that's fine.
Hashtag tiny people problem.
Oh, I'm asking questions. Lovely.
We can all ask questions.
We can all ask questions.
I can ask questions?
You can ask questions.
Yeah,
So do you guys audio and video record it, or PK obviously is
How many
recording?
of these do you want?
Because he records everything. He's got
As many people as there are here. So no one, if anyone wants to.
Who else are you guys speaking to?
Well, we've spoken already to the sheriff
Of Marion County.
and
How many was the number that you wanted?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6.
6. All right. No,
I get 7.
7.
Thank you. So just yes, go ahead and ask away.
Okay. What are a few of the qualifications for qualifying to get a medical marijuana card? As far as Oregon.
Todd's the man to ask on that one for sure. A few of them, there's a whole list of a dozen qualifications. So, they're actually almost every single one of them is listed on the advertisement on the back of this. Yeah, I think that's all of them, and they're trying to add PTSD right now, which is actually kind of hopeful for the bill in the legislature.
Are there any others besides PSD that are not on the qualifying list right now that people are trying to get added?
Immediately, I would say not like actively, but there's a lot that people want to have added. I mean, is there anything actively you can think of?
Yeah, they're
Some mental health
they're,
issues.
They're mostly around psychiatric conditions, and there is currently the psychiatric community hasn't been won over completely yet with medical cannabis. So PTSD seems to be the most urgent, and that's why there's so much political momentum with getting the bill passed, Senate Bill 281 in the Oregon legislature. But there's also anxiety, there's insomnia, there's diabetes. It's been shown to lower blood sugar. As a bone fracture healing.
Reduced breast cancer malignancies in some studies they've been shown. So I mean, there's so many potential things. But yeah, immediately the ones you mentioned, I agree, especially anxiety and depression even. And there's a list.
And how are growers certified? How do you become certified as a grower?
You don't get certified, you just register with the state.
Patients.
You just have to be registered with the state. Patients have to register you as their grower.
All right. This was the crew.
I don't know, is there any other certification? You gotta pay a fee?
The grower is registered by the patient. So the patient has options of either growing for themselves or designating someone else to grow for them. So whether it's themselves or somebody else, they need to pass a criminal background check. So they need to be free of a drug-related felony in the last 5 years, and they need to be adults. And
Oregon residents?
They don't need to be Oregon residents, but the grow site has to be in Oregon.
That's weird.
How do doctors and growers sort of work together to help a patient?
Doctors and
Growers, I suppose.
there basically isn't an established relationship between the doctor and the grower, just as there isn't or shouldn't be a relationship between the doctor and the pharmaceutical manufacturer. But of course, that's another story.
Places
But-
like this can actually help sometimes with referrals for, but I mean, the doctor doesn't get involved with the gardens particularly. It's more, doctor might refer somebody to a resource center like this that can help them learn about what they can do to obtain their medicine,
Well, there's information to be had about particular strains for particular conditions. But other than that, yeah, the doctor wouldn't have much need to talk with the
Get a
grower.
little lighter and
Are there
lighter over
specific
there.
doctors that you have to go to, or can you just go to any general practitioner?
No, any MD or DO can write a recommendation in the state of Oregon that's registered to practice medicine in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, any doctor can sign. Unfortunately, due to the atmosphere, particularly
They
the politics, the doctors are afraid. We haven't had one recently, but they did on one occasion here in Oregon. Local law enforcement went around to all the doctors in their area and more or less gave them a call that they didn't care about the law and they were going to hassle the doctors and blah, blah, blah. The same thing has happened up in Washington State. In Washington State, they carry around a note from the doctor saying that they're a patient pretty much, so the law enforcement can see who the doctor is in that scenario. And it's gone to
They don't have a
hassle.
registry system like we have for cars and stuff in Washington.
Right.
They
So,
just, it's a little looser.
while
Just recommendations.
every MD and DO can sign, there's a need for the specialists. So you end up with doctors who work for clinics or sign in of themselves, signing for 500 patients.
That's something you guys need to look into. I would recommend. My brother is an oncologist in Cleveland, radiation oncologist, and he recently sent me an interesting piece in the New England Journal of Medicine that had a discussion about using medical cannabis in this certain situation. This lady had breast cancer and went through chemo, and she needed it for nausea and standard use for medical cannabis. And they basically asked if you would recommend it or not, and a lot of the respondents were doctors. It was a login thing on the New England Journal of Medicine website, and more than half of them, it was like almost 60%, recommended that said that they would recommend that their patient use it. How they recommended they would use it was a different story. As my brother said, he would tell them that if it would work for them, that they could check it out, but he would never sign anything because, from his opinion, there's no way for him at this point to dose it. And he said he actually put in there, a little quote to me about how he can't, 2 joints and call me in the morning kind of thing. I mean, he doesn't know exactly. He's not aware of which, and that's why places like Todd's research center come in. That he's, all the work Todd's doing on research in cannabis and trying to determine so that you can tell a doctor, well, it's got these levels of medicines and this is what it's going to do, so the patients can actually use it effectively, and that needs to be freed up. So that's a function of doctors not wanting to do it. They're not risking it. The DEA might threaten their license if they recommend marijuana, put their name on it. I mean, that threat still is there because it's a class 1, controlled substance. So that's an aspect you guys might want to really focus on.
What we've seen a lot here in Oregon is that doctors are with a clinic or hospital group, and the group has some policy for whatever reason, and so they won't sign for them even though they agree that cannabis would be good for their condition. What they will do, though, is get all the records for them and refer them to places like us, who then will get them to the specialists.
That's where these resource centers come in so much in states, especially like Oregon, or any state really, because let's face it, right now federally, the doctors are having problems recommending it and not worrying about their licenses to prescribe.
Well, I think what Keith is referring to is this recent trend of doctors being threatened with sanctions based upon opioid cannabinoid recommendations, giving them the choice to choose one or the other for their patients. But what is important is doctors have 2 licenses in Oregon that make or break their careers or their ability to practice medicine. One is the state license to practice from the state, and that's just to practice medicine, and that's guaranteed in the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act that license will be protected as long as the doctor is, of course, following the standard of care and practice of medicine that all physicians should. So they get disciplined heavily by the Board of Medical Examiners if they step out of line, whether it's cannabis or overprescribing or underprescribing pain meds or any other practice of medicine. Their other license is by the DEA, and that's their license to prescribe medicine. And with most Western medical physicians, even if they have a license to practice medicine, it's almost worthless without the ability to prescribe controlled substances. And that, when Oregon first passed the Medical Marijuana Act in the early days of California, doctors were threatened by the DEA to have their licenses removed if they recommend cannabis for their patients. And then there is a court case called Conant versus McCaffrey, and that is established that the DEA may not pull a physician's license or discipline them in any way just by recommending cannabis for their patients. And one important factor in that is that cannabis at this point isn't prescribed. Herbal cannabis is not prescribed medicine. The Oregon physicians just have to write marijuana may mitigate the symptoms or effects of the patient's condition. They don't say it will. No doctor would say any treatment will help. They'll say that this may help. And that means the doctor is helping authorize the patient to experiment with cannabis to see if it works for them or not. If it doesn't work, then discontinue it. If it does work, then great. And that's where the physician relationship, or at least awareness of the horticultural side, the farmers, the growers, is important, because doctors already know what a pharmaceutical drug is prescribed for. It knows its on-label use, it knows its off-label use, it knows how they can prescribe it, the effective doses, what's a dangerous dose and what's a safe, effective dose. Without knowing that with cannabis, cannabis is herbal, everything's different, the varying cannabinoid levels are different. And doctors don't get the benefit of that education in their medical training.
Particularly the safety.
Right.
So they have to rely upon the patient's knowledge of the medicine, which cannabis has been used safely for 10,000 years without anybody dying. So the safety is pretty good chance you're going to make it. And that they either are a competent grower or have designated a competent grower, someone who knows how to grow medicinal quality, because they want to make sure that they're not using harmful chemicals that might yeah.
So would you tell us a little bit about your research into prescription levels and such? I'm not making any sense.
Well, we
Dosage levels of cannabis.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I run a research program out of Corvallis, Oregon, and one thing that we do is, we breed cannabis for medicinal purposes and for Oregon growing environments. And so we also run a survey program where patients can assess that medicine, the efficacy and safety and utility for them personally, and they report it through a survey that we design. So that brings us data of efficacy, of how it works for patients. We also have published research regarding what we would consider the anticipated effects. So we have the reported effects, we have the anticipated effects. And then we have phytochemical data. Everything that we do research with, we send to the lab and have it tested for at least 6 cannabinoids, up to 20, 15 terpenes, which are the essential oil components, as well as for safety of being free of pesticides and toxins. So we have the anticipated data, the reported data, the phytochemical data, and then we mix all that together and correlate it. So we're seeing if the patient's reported data meets our expectations, or is it showing us this whole new avenue of medical efficacy? And that's the wonderful thing about where horticultural science of cannabis is. You ask anybody, how many strains there are out there, and nobody knows. There are thousands.
It's like orchids.
And so
More
out
than
there,
orchids.
and when you have that great genetic variation, you have more of a chance to discover something out there that has the right balance of cannabinoids and terpenes that can be very useful for medical research. So this stuff is very important to correlate. Cannabis is a very multidisciplinary science, so all those disciplines have to relate with each other. The biochemists, the horticulturists, the medical, the pharmacological, the
And there's
legal.
like tens of, scores of CBDs. 60, 70, 80, 90 CB or cannabinoids in the plant. The CBD is one of them. And we only have even kind of touched on, 60 that we even know of, sort of, and they've only really studied like 4 or 5 at all. I mean, there's so much to be learned, and controlled substances.
Another aspect of that
is standing in the way. Controlled
important thing
Substances
about
Act is standing in the way.
Todd's research is that they're noting the times and quantities of dosage that the patients are taking on. The difficult side of it is when when the patient's utilizing these alternative modalities like vaporizing or medibles. Also, if they're using teas, tinctures, and oils, if they're applying it topically, it would be different way of dosing it. But all of these things are generally concerned with safety elements, and that's the good news about cannabis is, in all our cases where folks have had opportunities to overdose, and this dosage thing is important with, say, medibles, with cookies, which are concentrated normally.
Is it cool?
That no one has died, and no one has had any episodes of reefer madness or pretty much anything else that has been advertised by the drug war. So those I think are important things when we're talking about the dosing and titration there.
Pardon me?
I'm gonna have to get going, but I should probably sign your release. And if you ever want to come down to Corvallis and talk more about research, there's my card.
It's okay.
I don't know if that needs to be on the camera.
Well, we got Lysol.
Sure.
Lysol.
I don't know if it's going to help the documentary there. But if people want to criminalize themselves, that's up to them.
What are the questions you have? I'm going to have to go here in about 10 minutes, too, so.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our questions.
Really?
Really? Unless you guys want to make something up.
Okay, what have you guys thought of off the top of your head? I mean, come on.
Well,
What did the sheriff say? You got to let us in on it. Come on, man.
Other than the medical conditions, are there any other qualifications in getting a car? Like, is there a certain age limit or?
No, just have
anything
doctor's
like that?
recommendation, You can
If
even
you're-
be a child.
If you're under 18,
Uh-huh.
you can get the card with your parents.
Yeah,
Barry?
your parents have to,
Phone for you?
And there are a bunch of cases where children, recently, Brave Michaela, if you don't know about her, Google it. It'll just hammer you with YouTube videos. It's been covered on the TV news here and nationally. She's suffering from, help me out here, leukemia, and they're using cannabis for her to help with her stomach and all of that.
Just signing next.
Yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, I mean, there's no limit other than a recommendation from a physician.
Good. Well, thanks for your interest in studying this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks for stopping, Todd.
All right. Good to
Thank you.
reunite with you all again.
All right.
Take care.
So, what do you think is the next step as far as the medicinal and drug laws, as far as Oregon is concerned? Where do you think this trend is going? Do you think it's going to get
That's
easier
good.
or
That's good.
get
There's
worse?
No, I think I think we're just riding a wave, essentially, of.
Well, it was nice to hear Buckley, Senator Buckley,
Yeah.
speak at the hearing.
Yeah, we just had a hearing today on the ACMM, which Todd chairs, advising, and Peter Buckley was there, and he said that bring us back the fee structure that they just raised last year. They just doubled all the fees plus on everybody in Oregon in 2011 at the last minute, and they're scraping the money away to use for other programs in the Oregon Health Authority to balance their budget. It was kind of. Can I put a PO box?
Yes,
I guess
Sure.
you can.
It's kind of. I mean, we grow our own medicine. I'm just saying. Anyway, it was great seeing him there. It was a good meeting. But what was your question again?
Where do you think the laws are going to go from here? Do you think they'll
Oh,
it'll
They're
get easier?
They're loosening up everywhere
Get it-
slowly. There's 18 states. Looks like Illinois is hardcore, maybe going to do it. Illinois, likely Chicago. I'm just saying it. Illinois falls, Ohio falls, it's gone.
When
It's
Tennessee
over when you have a
falls.
couple of states that size, along with California fall.
The domino effect.
You know, it's just inevitable. So it's the same way alcohol prohibition ended. If you look at the history of how it came back, every state went out and they started saying, no, we're not doing this anymore, and finally the feds threw up their hands and repealed the law.
I think it's significant. We've got more leadership showing up. I define the politicians are the ones that would support this freaking thing, and leaders are the ones that recognize it for the facade that it is, and stand up, like our own Earl Blumenauer, who put forth a federal bill for legalization. And the polls are showing it, and more. We here in Oregon, we had an attorney general's race that was very significant. We had a significant effect on it and all, and so more and more political action, I think, like that, where I'm seeing it, and so that's a good sign. More folks getting registered to vote, more numbers on the polling and stuff like that. Folks like yourselves, more young people getting involved and doing things like not just looking for a party, but hoping to see some change. So,
Well, at least you guys are trying to find out. I mean, and to be
Getting the
quite honest
facts
with
for
you,
one.
there's a medical aspect to it, but there's also, for years, it's just been part of cultures all around the world. It's not something I think that you'd be thrown in jail for it, but then I'm actually for the ending of all drug laws. So I'm kind of Ron Polish that way.
And then really, it's not what cannabis can do, which is save the world, and that's just the hemp
The
side.
drug problems is it's a
But
public health
the
problem. It's not
war
a crime.
is a big fat waste. It's billions of
Yeah,
dollars
that's the
and
problem.
and countless people. The bottom line on cannabis prohibition is that it's killed more kids than cannabis has.
Right.
So let's stop doing this. And that should get published and broadcast, and then not just the dollars.
Cannabis
the
first, the rest
senselessness.
of the drugs and the drug war later.
So that's
But
that's
cannabis
that's the
obviously
problem,
is got to they've got to stop doing this. So
putting
and a lot of leaders. I mean, if you look at the global world on global world report on drugs, what's that? What it was called last year? You guys need to check that out. It was signed off on by George Shultz, who's Secretary of State of Ronald Reagan. Signed off on by Paul Volcker. Signed off on by the former president of Mexico, former president of Colombia. All said that they have to stop the drug war on cannabis. The war on drugs has failed overall, but the drug war on cannabis is the most glaring example of a complete failure. Absolute, complete, utter failure. And they have to stop doing it. They should stop doing it. Signed off on by Republicans and liberals alike. World leaders from all over the world. It's very important evidence to quit doing it. So, to answer your question of your thesis is, yeah, that's why. Because the rest of the world is saying to stop doing it too. I mean, we have to stop the war on cannabis. Whether it's medical patients or recreational drug users, it's not just a medical question. In the states right now, the medical question is the most compelling reason to get states to throw people in jail. But overall, people need to get thrown in jail for having weed. I mean, if you had a joint in Kansas and you get caught with it, or Mississippi. I don't know what Mississippi's like, but I can't imagine it's
Which is kind of
Kansas.
odd, given that Mississippi
Texas,
has the only
it's
marijuana legal
Right.
Official marijuana garden.
Actually,
Right.
on our
So
campus.
On your
Right.
kidding.
campus.
Ole
Yeah.
Miss,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Now there's a documentary. There's a
corporations have or the federal government has copyrighted or trademarked
Yeah, they patented
the fucking cannabis.
cannabis.
Seed. I mean the genome.
Right.
So
saying it has medical value.
Right.
Now, that must have been some day where they argued straight-faced in the court to say no.
here's another reason for an exception.
Deny the
Why it's an
rescheduling,
exception?
but then walked down the hall and
NIDA's
got a patent
rules,
saying it's
the
medical.
National Institutes for Drug Abuse
What hypocrisy.
bylaws on cannabis say that they cannot provide any cannabis to a research project that
Does not
that does not try to
prove it's
find
abusive.
prove it's abusive. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't use it for
If you're not going to
any
do bad
positive.
news, we can't let you do it.
The
We found out the
National
same
Institute
thing
for
when
Drug
we
Abuse,
applied
who
for
controls marijuana in your school,
501c3 status.
says
Profit.
that's important.
Any information we
You
give
guys should
out
focus
about
on that marijuana at your
cannabis,
school too, and all the
much less
laws
giving away,
that
much less
NIDA
how to
says.
grow.
Well,
They
we're going to
even
grow
say
this,
they're
but
telling you how to get
you
your
can only
card.
use
It's
it
a state function.
if
It's
your
illegal.
study's question is to prove
Yeah.
cannabis is addictive or bad.
All that activity
If it
was
proves it
illegal,
has medicinal
even though
value,
we were
you can't
charging
use it.
for it. So you can't, as a nonprofit, you
It's
can't do
insane.
anything that's not negative.
It's freaking
Yeah.
insane. When you start digging,
That's the IRS.
and the sheriff is going to
That's
tell
how
you
we
that.
interpret the law, much less
You know, the
DEA.
sheriff's just going to say there's a rash of people
I mean,
smoking
that's how the
weed,
DEA shuts
and
people
I'm like,
up.
you know what? If you start buffing
They're
people with
working
meth
on
and heroin
making- criticizing the
and
drug
drinking
lord.
and driving,
Pointing out lies and stuff. Oh, that's illegal.
not even
You
smoking and
can't do
driving,
that.
drinking and driving,
That's insane. So that's
you'd
it's
be
good
spending your
that
money a lot more wisely.
We
It's
get
just
more
absurd,
press on
the money
this
and the
thing,
effort
to get us over that.
So what did the sheriff say?
Yeah, it's a rampant problem down
I don't
here.
think we-
Mostly, he expressed he expressed concern that cannabis was a gateway drug.
Oh, that's an old one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Milk. Anybody who
And
uses a drug is also going to have drank liquor or smoked a cigarette or smoked weed. It doesn't make sense.
Was there other
All drug abusers
points?
use all drugs.
So would you?
I'm just saying, right? I mean, if you look at historically drug abusers, they, you know. So, and I have actually tried everything in my lifetime, and I've never done anything beyond once or twice ever, except cannabis. That's all. I do drink beer.
Was there any other points he
So
tried to make?
OMMA is being abused.
The sheriff
OMMA
that
is
he
being abused, right? You didn't say that? The Oregon Medical Marijuana Program
is a train
is being
wreck.
abused.
No, he
No?
did not say as much.
he
Really?
said-
Just gateway drugs? Yeah, that's pretty.
He
that's not
said,
bad.
like
Go talk to
like
Sheriff
any other
Winters down in
thing, you
Jackson
got your good
County.
people and your bad
He was
people.
all over Weed Country on Discovery Channel.
Interesting.
I think he was saying that their main focus is all of the methamphetamines and
Good.
Yeah,
heroin.
so this is the main thing.
Well, they got a bad problem with that in Salem too.
Yeah.
Bad.
That's what
I
he
mean,
got
was
a
it
bad
makes
problem
it's
with
like
that
Medford. You know,
everywhere.
Medford is they got no business even worrying about marijuana in Medford.
Yeah.
Medford is
I have a
ridiculous.
friend
So
in
you guys
Medford.
spoke to the sheriff. Anything else you can speak to while you're here? Or are you
Um,
traveling anywhere else in the state? Or are you guys here
well,
for?
we
you know?
did meet this. We did meet somebody at a
At the
at
Portland
the Saturday market,
Saturday market.
and we're
Oh,
going to
nice.
interview him today when we get back to Portland.
Cool. Grower. Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
Indoor. Yeah. You need to come to Southern Oregon. You know, see some real gardens.
So, would you say?
we go down there. So we're from.
It would be
Joseph.
really
say
neat to get that.
The war on
Like
drugs
what?
is basically just a couple of people high up there just kind of stuck in their ways.
You know, the war on
Very-
drugs is an entrenched economic part of our law enforcement system.
It's a special
It's
interest.
entrenched, and they make tons of money on it.
And now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, government entities, particularly the DEA, have become a special interest themselves. Now their budget dollars have, you know, before it was just lumber and just oil and Hearst, the paper,
Pharmacy.
you know, pharmacy.
Pharmacy.
Right.
Although AMA was opposed to prohibition when it first came out. then they went and arrested 3,000 doctors, and they changed
Yeah,
it to
do you think pharmacists are going to be happy when they find out that MS patients can smoke marijuana and quit using 7 of the 9 drugs they use?
Yeah, that's the main thing.
And they're
that I've
spending
been-
$700 a month on those 7 drugs.
I've done research into things.
The
like
pharmaceutical
this.
companies, the last thing we want to see is that, especially guys with chronic conditions like that it alleviates like nothing
Alzheimer's.
else.
Alzheimer's.
It's insane, and
not
the
just
drug
that.
companies were behind it with the oil companies. You know,
So
it's-
if you look at in terms of numbers of like people, there's the drug warriors, there's like the drug czar.
Tons of money.
There's a couple of characters there. It's all money though. I mean, like
The
the drug
local
czar,
law
he
enforcement
gets
gets tons of money.
$18.7 billion a year to lie. You know,
every
and-
county has their own little drug squad.
right.
Every
Hit
county,
Mm-hmm.
every county, and they all have their own little name. It's ICE, and it's RAID, RADE, and it's MADGE, MADGE, and it's
Dare.
Dare. No, Dare. Oh, that's the old ladies got
But,
pissed off
yeah,
in the
no,
70s.
it's,
But you know, they all get hundreds to millions of dollars a year from the federal government,
and they
depending on
tie
how
in
many
with
drug busts they have.
non-profit groups like Partnership
So-
for Drug Free America to do legislative things to get more. You know, if they don't do some ad campaign like the "Have you seen this girl?"
Right. I mean,
we made hash of.
and I agree. You know, if they just spend the money on treating people for drug abuse, there are people who do have problems with cannabis. They're just like some people have problems with alcohol, just like some people have problems with cigarettes. But just putting people in jail for it is absurd, and it's way more expensive when you're spending $40,000 a year on a guard.
Hell.
And I'm not talking about in Oregon. People don't go to jail for small amounts of cannabis in Oregon, but gardens they do, and it's still just an herb.
It's still getting trashed even when they're medical.
You know, but in Kansas you can go to jail for a couple years.
Here's one big player, and here's one player, not big. I mean, everybody's big, I guess, but the bank that just got
Yeah.
slapped,
HSBC was laundering drug money,
and
$85 billion,
where
and they haven't touched them.
They got a $1 billion
They haven't
fine,
touched them.
but nobody
They know they
went to
knew.
jail. Nobody got arrested. You know, not like
But
you little
you're
people.
smoking
that if
weed
you
in
had a duck out
Kansas,
with a
you're gonna
joint,
go to jail.
You know, not even the same thing
There's
that would
no
happen
exception.
there went to these folks.
These
Now,
people are making exceptions.
That bank and those
So we need to make an
bankers that
exception
got
back.
those millions
You
of
know,
bucks
it's
from
like it's
that,
hypocrisy.
go take that millions and put it to the drug war. They
Right.
put stuff in the candidate to keep the drug war going, all about family values, and really they're profiting. That's why they're freaking doing it. And so that goes on. And these are government entities, or people that are getting government money. Partnership for Drug Free. That was that other outfit we exposed with the "Have you seen this girl" campaign.
That was the bank or
Who
something
are
up
often
there.
tied to
So-
rehab, professional rehab centers.
Yeah.
So they're keeping these laws to herd people at gunpoint into their rehab centers, where they're also getting their little ideology agenda pushed down to you too.
Right.
You know, it's a package.
It's a
deal,
very
and we're seeing-
conservative argument I'm making. I'm a very liberal man. But to sit there and tell them to stay out of my life and leave me alone, it's a super libertarian argument that you don't have any business telling me what I'm doing with my body, whether I'm taking
To tell me what I
cannabis or I'm
drink,
taking
what I can-
heroin. It's none of your business.
You can't tell me
And
what I
you
can
shouldn't be
plant
throwing
or
people
can't
in jail
plant
for
or
doing
grow
that.
or-
It's that simple. I mean, it's just, they could throw them in jail if they commit a crime to pay for the habit, and you might question whether we make it illegal to do it, but it'll
Maybe-
never
maybe
stop it.
the
It hasn't
Congress,
stopped
you know,
it. They've had it illegal forever. It hasn't
But
stopped
yeah,
it.
for citizens to grow and to trade amongst themselves freely,
Yeah.
screw it. They don't have any business.
It's basically like owning a gun. You can own a gun, but as long as you're not becoming a danger to yourself, to anybody else in
That's
the
right.
community, then there's no reason for them
It's a
to come mess with it.
completely conservative argument. I mean, most of the time people get frustrated, and it's the same thing with right to life stuff, man. Why they, it's only the religious right wing that want to stop abortions, because a real true conservative that's not a religious freak is going to say, what she does to herself isn't my problem, my business.
Yeah, and truth be told,
You know what?
I don't want the kid either around.
And I'm all for that. Government,
Yeah,
stay out of my life. Stay out of my life. And, unless you're polluting, that's where I become liberal, Unless you've got 900 cars on your property that are, and don't get mad when the government tells you to clean it up because, the neighbor downstream has got, radiator fluid in his freaking water or something.
Right.
That's when your liberties stop because you're affecting other people. If you're doing it amongst yourself,
Well, he has another 20 cars in his parcel of land too.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he has 10, your neighbor must have 20.
Dude, it gets absurd. I mean, people who and companies that are people
Quote
can
unquote.
have the same rights to screw that land up.
And
Supposedly,
companies are keeping, this thing going by virtue of the same thing.
I gotta get going,
Right.
guys.
Thank
But
you.
feel free to call me or
Thank you.
email me. It's on there, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you guys for coming on this way.
Okay.
And if you really want to see a real garden,
Thanks.
Come over to my place.
What?
Stormy called and got directions.
So you want
That's
to
what was on
sign
phone.
off
she's
for
gonna have
us?
to re-meet her and-
We're channel 23
Oh.
CCTV.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. What time is she supposed to be here?
She said she was on her way, so
Okay.
she any minute I would expect.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very
having me.
I
much.
was wait for her here.
Okay.
And thank you for
And you
agreeing to
can
talk to
see
us.
this on the internet in a week or two.
Awesome.
Good.
I was told right.
Is there a way we can get a copy soon?
Right.
That's as close as we can do. When I hand in the tape, I'll ask to get this and I'll mail it down to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you better leave your address and your name and your
And that's all you guys
telephone
want?
number.
Huh? I
mean-
believe this.
That's it. I mean, I will put you on TV on our TV show. We
You
got
gonna
TV
be here
shows, we got
Friday?
meetings.
No, we're leaving Tuesday.
Oh.
Well, we're leaving Wednesday morning.
I'll postpone it
If we
till
could stay
next
longer,
week.
we would
Our
definitely
classes
be
start back.
up for it, but they only give so much money.
Right.
So we have
Right.
to-
Man, that's, you know
And we
what,
do have to
that's
have
a
our project
blessing
done
that you
by
got that, you guys. It's a blessing. How well it is that you get the chance to get some information to share with others that they would never get to see.
Right.
I mean, the peoples that you talked with, and it's too cool. You know, all you got is so much to show what cannabis does for others because it is really good information, and everybody's living on the bad information. If everybody would have got the good information in the beginning, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right.
But no, we've got nothing but bad information for so long, and now we really got good information, and it's just it's so good. It's even better than you can imagine. Now every day we find out something better for somebody, and that's the thing because it's like the strains. The plant that helps him don't help you, but it helps her, but it don't help her. But this other strain helps you, but it only helps you and her because it don't help nobody else, or it just helps you. I mean, and that's the way with these plants that everybody needs to know, man. You just need to find one that helps you and it makes you feel whatever the pain, the spasms, the nausea, the stuff that you're going through. That's what you need because everybody's plants are different. And yeah, you can grow one and she can grow it and he can grow it and I can grow it and he can grow it. And every one of those plants, even though it was the same plant, will come out different. I mean, unless, because his
Particularly if
water,
you get any other variables thrown in.
yeah, well,
so-
because
Right.
the water, the food, the light, the air, it all makes
The
a
water.
difference. Every one of those things make a difference to the outcome of that plant, how you cure it, and then how it's going to help. How's it going to help all
And
of
no variables, no bugs, no molds,
all
no
of
criminal
it, you
activity,
know.
no police raids.
But that's the biggest thing is what a blessing we get to find out how good it is and how many people don't have to suffer. I mean, a lot of people have came through here that quit doing morphine. You know, people that are on morphine because of allergies, because of whatever. That's all they do is morphine. It's a terrible drug. People die from it. People commit suicide from it. And now people are literally quitting it and living on cannabis by eating it and smoking it and rubbing it on their different ailments because everybody's got arthritis and broken bones.
Joint,
and-
anything close to the skin, burns, skin conditions.
Oh, psoriasis.
Mhm.
You know, that's what it does. But you guys get
Carpal
really good.
tunnel.
You get good
Yeah.
benefit,
Joint
and that
tendon.
nobody would tell you about before. And now all we know is the good benefit we get, and My gosh, I mean, what is wrong with that?
You know,
And we don't
and
have
it's
no
safe
side
enough
effects.
as it is, but
That's
even
the biggest thing.
when
There is-
delivered that way, it's, you know, the chance
There
of
is no
highness
side
is
effects
zero.
from cannabis other than eating and sleeping. And that's everybody's issue in our society today, is that they can't eat, but they can't sleep, and most of them can't do both. So they're on a lot of drugs for all of that. And if you break that right, just that one little piece down, wow, you'll see it's like 90% of the whole deal. The little 10% is your recreational users that are just really trying to, you know, blah, blah,
Folks,
blah.
sacrament, creativity.
Oh yeah.
Some folks use it for inspiration. A lot of folks don't know Carl Sagan, the astrophysicist, was a cannabis user. Yeah, like when he really needed to get the deep thoughts, long deep thoughts there.
So over here we have a map as state where phone calls came from. And where did you people come from? And you're doing a school project?
Yeah, what city is it?
Oxford.
Okay, Oxford. Well, we'll get that little pin in there here soon.
So you make us feel really special that you come all the way from Mississippi.
Yeah, make sure you visit our Mississippi page. And
Ask if they have a warrant.
Hey,
No,
We're
don't
closed,
ever do
man.
that.
Let me see. I got 8.
We're still here because we heard Stormy's coming, and we were supposed to meet Stormy like.
Good.
yeah.
Yep. And she
Okay.
was saying she might be late, so I'm
Oxford's
thinking she's
in the
coming here
northeast.
first, and that way I don't have to go to her hotel.
North and middle.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is Channel 23, Mercy TV. We're special. You want to say anything before I turn it off, Glenn?
Yes, good night.
Good night. God bless you all, every single one of you.